All right, Kath, we made it.
We did. We made it.
We finished the JMT. We are now official JMT through hikers. Yahoo!
Yeah.
We had a really good time, and we're going to do a little post-hike analysis here for your benefit, as well as for our own mental exercise here, because we're going to be changing some things up from what we did this year for our hike next year. So hopefully what we're going to discuss today will help you a little bit if you're planning your first JMT adventure or any kind of an outdoor adventure where you're going to be doing some wilderness hiking for a few days. So we're going to get started, and I'm going to let Kath begin here. Oh, to let you know where we're at, because we're doing this outdoors, I thought this would be a nice setting to do this in, since we are outdoors people now. We're actually at the north end, or actually the southern end of the Louisville Lake, right?
Right, at the Elm Fork.
Elm Fork picnic slash hiking slash biking slash fishing area down here, just below the dam down Louisville Lake. And they've got a nice little picnic area here. We had to get in out of the wind to be able to do this, so we went back into the trees. They've got some pretty nice little picnic table sites here with little fire pit and picnic tables on concrete blocks. It's a little wet out here this morning. We actually came down here to walk first, and we got about 15 minutes down the trail that we normally walk on, and there was a lake down there because we had some rain for the last week or two, haven't we, honey? Mm-hmm. So I'm going to turn it over to Kath, and I hope that we're not talking too loud. I've got a new camera that I'm trying out, a GoPro, and I'll explain to you why I'm using a GoPro, at least as an experiment now, to see if I get better results than I did with my Garmin Verb. But we'll be speaking a little louder, and I can tone this down when we do the editing on it. Okay, honey.
Okay, so overall our hike was a great success. I can't think of anything really to complain about. It was just fabulous. So we're just going to quickly review a few things. One of the reasons it was so good was because our daily distance, we decided to go about 8 miles a day. That was our average.
And the reason we decided for 8?
The reason we did that was because 2 years ago when we hiked in 2017, I actually got a stress fracture in my foot, and we had to come off the trail. So we were doing longer distances, and I was carrying a much heavier pack in 2017. So this year, one of the things we decided on was just, making sure the distance wasn't going to overstress my foot and my ankle. We did have a few resupply days that we hiked a little less distance, 3 to 4 miles. So those were Nero days, and we actually took 1 0 day at MTR, and that was all the zeros we took.
That's Muir Trail Ranch for you newbies out there who've never been to Muir Trail.
Okay, anything you want to add to the distance?
No, I would just say that was one of our hiker brains got bigger after the hike last year. We had over-programmed ourselves, and we realized almost immediately when we got started last year it was going to be really tough to keep up a schedule where we were doing 10 or 10 plus mile days in a couple of days. And even though we did those things, I think it contributed, as Kath said, with just not only the distance we hiked, but the weight that she was trying to carry. And so we changed those things for our hike this year, and I think it was to our benefit. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we succeeded where we failed last year, didn't we, honey?
Exactly. And I was able to enjoy the trail much more this year because we did go slower. I was able to stop and look around more. We took a little bit longer breaks during the day. We took, always a morning break, and then for lunch we would take a half hour. And then we had 1 or 2 breaks in the afternoon, and we got in early to our campsite. We were always in camp by 3 or 4, which was wonderful, because then we had all afternoon to kind of hang out in the campsites, to soak our feet, and that kind of stuff. So all of that contributed to a really great hike. Resupply points, they were timed just right for us. We had mules come in and bring in our resupply at Kearsarge Pass and the JMT Junction, and also at Bishop Trailhead and the JMT Junction. We also resupplied at MTR, at Reds, and at Tuolumne. And actually at Tuolumne we ended up driving into Lee Vining and spending the night there, and then coming back and finishing out the trail, coming back the next morning. As far as the mules bringing in our food, it was a really great idea. It kept us from having to hike out over Kearsarge Pass.
Great idea.
And back in over Kearsarge Pass, which is a beautiful trail, but it would take 2 days basically. Along with that, you have the cost of staying in a hotel if you go into town. You have the cost of meals. You have a cost of a ride if you can't hitch in. So all of that cost certainly came even, or even was more expensive if we'd had hiked out than it was by having the mule. We ended up using the JMT Yahoo group, the pages that they do where people can sign up for sharing a resupply, a mule resupply. And the cost for us, for Kearsarge, we split it with 3 other people, so there were 4 of us. The cost was $120 a piece, which is really reasonable.
Yes.
And we didn't have to hike out and all of that. For the Bishop one, that was a little bit more expensive because we were the only ones that were resupplying that day at that location. So we ended up paying $600, the full price. But again, well worth it because we didn't have to hike up over Bishop Pass. And the others we sent buckets to. So it all worked out really great for us. I think that was, again, one of those things that helped to make this trip really, really successful.
I would agree with that, and I would say, obviously, if you can't afford $600, then you're probably going to do the go out and come back. I mean, that's pretty obvious. But if you can afford it, or if you've got a group, you've got 3 or 4 people in your group, and you're bringing stuff up, you can split that cost up, and it's really very reasonable when you start thinking about it. If you can share the expense, it's pretty reasonable to have that done. If you're limited, especially if you're limited on time, and you want to try to do the trail in a certain amount of time, you might want to think about doing mule resupplies to not have to come off the trail.
It's raining leaves. It's wonderful. We love fall.
Here in Texas.
Yes, finally. Okay, packs. Loved our packs. We got the Southwest Mountain. I always forget how to say this. Hyperlight Mountain Gear.
Southwest 3400 for her.
Right.
And the 4400 for me. Same pack, just a bigger. I had more volume in my pack than she did.
The weight was perfect. It was very, very comfortable. It cleaned up really well. We got the white ones and they were horribly dirty after our hike. And they cleaned up really well with water in the bathtub. And the only thing I didn't like about them was where the water bottle pocket is on the side. If you're wearing your pack, you cannot reach that. So we got some little water bottle holders that fit on our shoulder straps. If you go back and look at our gear video from before we left the trail, you'll see everything we took, and you'll see those bottle holders. The other thing that I really liked is these clamshells because it helped us get organized. And this is, again, is the Hyperlight Mountain Gear. They are the Dyneema Cuban fiber fabric, and so they're really water resistant. Some people call them waterproof. And we were able to, like put our extra clothes in one. I was able to put all of our kitchen gear in one. So everything was very, very organized. And when we got in the tent, there was not an explosion all over the floor of the tent.
This, if you're planning your trip for the first time, I'm not familiar, this is what Hyperlight Mountain would call a stuff sack.
It's a clamshell.
But it's a clamshell shape. And you put the gear in, and it's got a zipper that you pull up to zip it up. It does exactly the same thing as your stuff sack would do.
Except, because it's shaped this way, the flat part goes on the back of the pack, and this goes around the right, and it just fits right down in, and you can smush, smush out the air and really pack things in well. Okay. Next, we're going to go to gear.
Now, I have one thing to say about water bottles before
Okay.
we go off the gear, and that is I also had a water bottle holder for my shoulder strap. I was actually carrying a 1 liter bottle on my shoulder strap. One of the lessons that I've learned for next year is I'm not going to take, or at least I'm going to have the same capacity of water bottles to carry, but I'm going to take a smaller bottle. Kath had a half-liter bottle on her shoulder strap. That's what I'm going to put on my shoulder strap from here on out, and then if I need to refurbish that, I can do it when we stop to filter water or have a snack or take a pack break. I can just refill that bottle, because a 1 liter bottle on your shoulder gets to be a little bit obnoxious after 39 days in the trail. So that's the one small change I'm going to make for next year.
Okay, so our tent is a Z-Pax triplex, the camo version.
Camo.
And we love it, love it, love it. This year is the first year we've used a Z-Pax tent, and it has plenty of room inside for the two of us and our gear. The vestibules are great, loved those. The tent is very flexible in that we were in some very tight campsites occasionally with big rocks around us or lots of trees, and we were able to set it up, and it held beautifully. We had some really rough winds a couple of nights. We had hail, heavy rain, and we had no problems with the tent, other than towards the very end, the zipper pull on one side started to kind of pull away a little bit, and so we were gentle with it. It lasted the whole trip, and as soon as we got back, we sent it into Z-Pax, and they fixed it for us, no charge.
In fact, it's in the mail as we speak. We should be getting it back here very, very shortly. I'd like to say one thing about the tent, and that is Z-Pax sends you a roll of a paracord with the tent, and you can cut it to length for whatever lengths you think you need for the different attachment points on the tent. And one of the issues that you have on the trail is, especially in the Sierra Nevadas up there at the high country, is there's a lot of granite, a lot of rock up there. So consequently, you have to do a lot of dead man setups, which means you're using a big rock and a little rock to secure your tent attachment points with the cord. And when we did that, there were a couple of places that we stayed at that got the cord pretty frayed, and I ended up having to cut off some of my clothesline that I had taken along, which is a little bit, I think it's a little bit more sturdy tent line. And so here's an example of what the tent line would look like that we've got. And I actually, when we got home, I actually ordered some tent cord from the Night Eyes people. That's N-I-T-E. I think it's I-E-Y-Z-E, something like that. But anyway, Night Eyes. And this stuff is reflective at night, because that was the other problem with the other tent cord that we got, was this, you couldn't see it in the dark. It didn't reflect back at you. This stuff, you get it in the dark and you shine a headlamp on it, it really sparkles, then again, stands out. So those are that was the only issue that I thought that we had to do a change on when we got back.
We, for stakes, used the shepherd hooks, the titanium shepherd hooks. They're very thin. They were fine. It was probably, well, they were easier to get into the ground when we could than the thicker ones, because they were thin and you could get them in between the rock that kind of hid under the surface dirt. A few of them bent, but they did fine. We also used these lights, these little, what do you call them? Dog lights? Yeah. That really helped us be able to see the tent at night, since we didn't have the reflection kind of rope on the stakes in the tent. So that helped us find the tent, helped me find the tent when I'd been out at night to go to the bathroom, to find the tent again, because camouflaged in the dark among trees can be a challenge. So anyway, quilt. We had several cold nights down into the 27 degrees a couple of nights, and our quilts were, they're the Revelation quilts from Enlightened Equipment, and Sam got 900 fill on his. I got 850, I think, is what it is.
Yeah.
And he was plenty toasty. I was a little cold a few nights, but I felt like my fill and his fill, there was just a world of difference between the two. So if you're getting ready to buy a down quilt or a bag, and you're a cold sleeper, you might want to, you know, just bite the bullet and put in a little bit heavier fill to keep you warm. All right, you want to talk about your pads, your sleeping pad?
Yes, we took along the Thermarest Pro Light Plus. Both of us did. They're the inflatable, you know, they're the ones that are kind of self-inflating partially, and then you can blow air into them to get them fully inflated to whatever firmness you want. And both of those work great. That's what we're using now. They're very comfortable to sleep on. It's just like sleeping at home for me. I mean, it's no different than our bed at home. That they're very comfortable to sleep on. The one thing that we did add, or I added on to that, was I went down and bought, Thermarest also makes a pad that's called the Z Light, and it's just a 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch thick pad that accordions up into a pile like this. You can put it together, and I bought one of those, a 72-inch one, which is the large, and I cut it into 2 pieces, and I attached those onto the back of my pack, which you'll see on our video when it comes out. But those things, those 2 pieces of pad were great because I could use them for multiple uses. I could use it to kneel on when I was rolling stuff up, especially up there when it got in the hard granite type places up there.
And muddy.
And we could use it to sit on when we would take a break, or we were in camp and we didn't have a boulder or a log to sit on. You could sit on the ground and put a pad down. Probably the best new idea I had for this year's hiking. And then I would also take a piece of that pad and stick it up underneath my regular Thermarest, the one, the Pro Light Plus, at night, and it gave me a little bit more insulation, especially when you're sleeping in the cold ground up there. So great, that was a great choice. Great choice.
Okay, we're going to move on to kitchen stuff. I think one of the best things that we decided on was to use the Jet Boil bigger pot. This one, it's the 1.5 liter pot. It's wider, and so when you add the water, or you boil the water and you add your dehydrated food, there's more of a water surface there, and the food can get rehydrated really well. The one that comes with the Jet Boil is the tall, narrow one, and so we really like this one. It did a great job for us. Next year, we're trying a new burner system here. This actually fits onto the bottom here, and it will lock into place so that you don't have to worry about this tipping. With the Jet Boil burner, it's a smaller burner, and so you have to have an adapter to fit onto the bottom of this pot. And that adapter was not very steady or sturdy, and you also had to deal with it when you packed things up. With this, it just fits right down in here. I can put the lid on and I've got everything together. Whereas that other thing, it was just an extra piece of something that was always seemed to be in the way. And
So what kind of burner is that, Kath?
This is a GSI. There are other brands that are similar to this, but this is the GSI.
And where did you get that idea?
We've not used it. I got this idea from Hurl Goat. If you have not watched Hurl Goat on YouTube, you need to do that. He's hiked just about every trail, I think, in the United States. And he's got great videos. So,
a lot of good information.
Yeah, take a look at Hurl Goat. He's really good. Okay, so all of this stuff, along with our lighter, which was a lighter that was good for over 10,000 foot elevation.
It's a Zycar, and if you go to our pre-2017 gear video, you can see all of our gear. Zycar lighter, 10,000 foot plus lighter. I wanted Kath, well, first of all, about the lighter. Don't leave home without one, especially if you're going to be hiking in the Sierra Nevadas. If you're above 10,000 feet and you've got the little button on the side of your burner can, you may have a different one than what we had, but the one that we got with the jet boil, it may have just gone bad, but it stopped working. And unless you want to try to be lighting matches above 10,000 feet with the wind howling, or you have a lighter I haven't heard of, you need to get one of these lighters that will light above 10,000 feet, which is why I proclaimed the Zycar the winner. Because I used it, we were in the wilderness for 39 days, and I bet I used that lighter a minimum of 30 times for evening meals.
Well, more than that.
Yeah, probably more, but at least 30, because the striker button on the burner just wasn't working. And the other thing I wanted to have Kath address is I burned up the protection pad on the bottom of the pan, and because you put that plastic on there, it helps when you're packing. It also keeps you from cutting up the inside of your pack when this thing is inside of one of your containers there. But this thing protects the bottom, the fire ring. This is what they call the fire ring right here. And I forgot that the thing was on there when I got the fire started, and so I took the whole pot with the plastic bottom on it and put it on the burner, and I burned a hole right in the middle of it. And what happened, Kath?
And I contacted JetBoil and asked them if I could order one, and they were nice enough to just send us one as a goodwill gesture. So that was nice.
Excellent.
Good customer service there.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to go on to some miscellaneous things. Headlamp. My headlamp, my black diamond headlamp, was just really weird in that if I would just bump it, even if it was on, if I just bumped it, even at the side, or, you know, combing my hair, brushing my hair, I'd bump the strap, and I wasn't hitting the on-off button, I was just bumping it, it would cut off, and then we couldn't get it to come back on. So there was some kind of a wire that was loose, or the battery connections just weren't, I don't know, weren't solid. So I ordered a new one. I haven't used it yet. It's a Nightcore. Go online and you can see several reviews about it. I think I'm really going to like it. I've messed with it. I've played with it a little bit. So anyway, clothesline. We took along a clothesline this time, which I was really glad of, because again, it was this stuff. We were able to use part of it to replace the tie downs on our tent when those frayed. And we were able to hang out clothes every night to be able to dry.
Highly recommend that you take some length of clothesline with you, because you'll have the opportunity to be able to hang your clothes if you do a stream wash, and if you have issues with your guy lines, if you have a tent that's not a self-standing tent and you have issues with the guy lines tying your tent down to your stakes, it's a good piece of thing to have to be able to replace your tent support stakes there. So that highly recommend. And I took 50 feet, and we needed 50 feet, didn't we, Kath? A lot of times we used the full 50 feet. So
okay, clothing. I was really happy with the clothing I took. Everything worked really well for me. I had said in my gear video before we left that I was going to take a hoodie, a Patagonia hoodie, lightweight thermal, and at the last minute I decided not to take it, and I was not happy that I left it. I should have taken it. I would have been a little bit warmer, but I was not miserable by a long shot. The other thing was both of us had rain gear, the Marmot rain jacket, and those came in fabulously. They were just wonderful. We never had to wear them in the rain, because every time we had rain, we had already set up our tent. It was late afternoon or at night. But we wore them many a morning when we would get up, because when it was 27, 30 degrees outside, those pants and that jacket and the wind especially kept us nice and toasty. My one complaint that I had about my clothing was that my gloves, they were waterproof. They just weren't warm enough.
Right.
So this year I'm going to find some other gloves when we go.
And the other thing that I would add on to gloves is you're going to be where it's going to be colder, and we started our hike in mid-August and finished basically towards
Late
the end
September.
of September. Yeah, the 22nd or 21st of September. I'm going to, because I did this when we got to Reds, I actually went in and got some hand warmers, bought them in the store there at Reds, those kind that you use for golf, that are little things you just open up the package and it starts to heat up. It's got a little pad in there. And those things will go for 3, 4, 5 hours. And they're really nice to have, especially on a really cold morning. You don't have to use them every morning. But when you need one, especially when you're outside having to take your clothes off to do something that you need some skin to be able to zip zips or do whatever you need to do, it's nice to be able to put your gloves back on and stick one of those warmers either inside your glove or have them inside of your jacket, where you can put them in your pockets of your jacket and put your hands and your gloves in your pockets.
Okay, a couple of miscellaneous things. I wish we'd have had a few more Band-Aids. I had pared down our first aid kit to like 3 Band-Aids because the year before we didn't use any, and I had a whole box full. So this year I put in 3, thinking, oh, that'll be fine. Well, turned out we could have used more Band-Aids, more blister tape. Although neither one of us had blisters, I did wrap my toes every day because I had a few hot spots that would have turned into blisters. So I wrapped my toes with that blister tape, and we didn't have enough to get us through. We had to go into a hiker box at MTR and get some more. Sunscreen was perfect. I wish we'd have had just some regular lotion because both of our skins got really dry. His hands cracked, and that's what we needed the extra Band-Aids for. Was he had some pretty good cracks on his thumbs.
Yeah, word to the wise. I had splits where the skin literally split open on my thumbs and on my index fingers both. I had problems with both of them. And once that happens, it's so hard to keep the dirt and the crud and all the rest of that stuff out of there. You got to clean them every night. You got to put on fresh Band-Aids or whatever you have tape on every day to keep from getting infected there. So the lesson I learned, another lesson for me for next year, is I'm going to have a pair of sun gloves to hike in to protect my hands from the sun, because I had some real sun issues. And that's why Kath's talking about the lotion. We were putting on sunscreen, which helped a little bit, but I should have been wearing sun gloves from day one. And the other thing is, talking about puffies, I don't know whether you mentioned this already or not, but we're thinking about, you can notice, this is the puffy I wore, and I'm probably going to get a new one, because you can see this one lasted for 2 trips on the JMT, but it's starting to wear out on me now. I've got a couple of spots. But we're going to get puffies that actually have a hood attachment, not attachment, it's actually part of the jacket. Right. From Patagonia is what we're looking at.
It's the sweater, the down sweater.
Down sweater.
And they're plenty warm.
Right.
Right,
and the other thing that I did was going back to sleeping gear and down equipment. I actually had a hoodie that I could wear when I was sleeping with my quilt on. And because the quilt only comes up to your neck when you're sleeping in that, so your head's exposed. It's not like a mummy sleeping bag where you have a head cover that comes with the bag. So you have to wear something there when it's cold out at night, whether it's a stocking cap or whatever. But the people there from Enlightened Equipment make a little, they call it the Hoodlum, which is a nice little hoodie, which you can see in our video, Wild Magnificent. There you can see me wearing that thing, and I wore that not just to sleep in, but I wore it in the morning when it was cold, and I actually wore it a couple of mornings when we would begin hiking, because that was the only head cover I had out there. So I'd wear it until it started to warm up and then take it off.
Just a couple of additional things. I took too much of a few things. Too many eye drops, too many tubes of Vaseline for lips, too many little toothpaste things. I had some little bottles of face wash. So I had a lot of extra stuff I ended up carrying, you know, as every resupply came in, and I had a little bit more of that. Had a couple of luxury items. I had a washcloth that I was really glad I had because I used it every afternoon when we would get into camp. I'd, you know, go to the lake or the stream and wash off the dirt, and used it every morning for my face to just kind of wake up. And then we both had a pillow that we took along. It's a pillow, and again, if you look on our gear videos, you'll see that. Okay, couple things about food.
Yes.
We had some people ask about food, what we did for food. Well, for the dinner meals, always at night, we would do something like the backpackers. This is the 3-cheese mac and cheese, and this has 19 grams of protein in it per serving. We did a lot of the Mountain House. This has 12 grams of protein per serving. We tried to make sure that we were getting enough protein along with your necessary calories and your carbs to keep you going. And then when we had snacks, I tried again to get some things that have protein for snacks, because we were eating 2-3 snacks a day. And I like to have things that, like I said, have protein, but that are somewhat healthy as well. So the Monk Pack cookies have 18 grams of protein. The Complete cookie has 16. RX bars, love RX bars. Those have 11 or 12. The Go Macro bars have 11 or 12. Here's another Zing bar. These are chocolate, and so they're really good. It makes you think you're getting an extra special treat. Of course, we had Pro bars, sometimes for snacks, sometimes for a meal. Gluten-free bar, GFB. I'm not worried about gluten in our diets, but again, it was a protein kind of thing, and they're very tasty. And we had None or Noon, or however you say it, drink mix, yeah, for electrolytes. But we discovered with the first food carry that we did, it was 10 days worth of food, and that's a lot of food in 2 bear canisters, big bear canister and a littler one. And we just did not have enough snacky kind of stuff. By the first resupply that we sent in, the first mule resupply, we were able to get more snacky stuff in that one because it was a shorter carry.
Right.
But we, you know, Sam discovered really quickly, because he was getting really droopy towards the end of the afternoon. He wasn't getting enough protein in that first food carry because we didn't have enough room to put, you know, all of this kind of stuff in. And as soon as he started eating this stuff for his snacks, he had a lot more energy. He wasn't such a grumpy Gus when we got to the campsite, and he had enough energy. You get grumpy
if you don't get enough protein.
There you go.
Make sure you have plenty of protein.
Well, we just needed to not be hungry. So, all right.
Okay, I have one last thing, and then I'll be done. I don't know what Kath, but you might have something. We are recording this on my new GoPro. I went out and bought a GoPro Hero 7, and I'm test firing it, and I'll tell you why. I loved my Garmin Verbs. I still love my Garmin Verbs because of the quality of the product. They're a great product. They're just like GoPro is a great product. So I'm not trying to pit one against the other. I don't know how well the GoPro is going to do when it's exposed to the conditions that we had out on the trail, which what I mean is going to be times where it's going to be warm during the day and the sun's going to be shining on the camera when you're carrying it there to get your pictures and your video. And it's going to be freezing cold sometimes, and it's going to be exposed to that at night. In other words, you can't just take it in and leave it indoors someplace when you're on the trail. It's in your tent, and you wrap it up as best you can to protect it from the temperatures at night when it gets really cold. But I think that it had something to do with some of the issues that I was experiencing with my Garmin Verb. I'd say anywhere from 10 to 20% of the photos and the videos became corrupted And I think it's just an issue with either the camera or the SD cards, whatever. But I was using the recommended SD cards, but I had some issues. And so I was kind of disappointed because there were a couple of items that I had recorded and or took pictures of that I thought were going to be great for our movie that we're making. And they just didn't come out, and I couldn't recover them. I used some software and tried to recover. I recovered a few things, but it's disappointing when you can't get every piece and every bit of information that you wanted to get and have it survive the trail. So I'm trying the GoPro, and I'll let you know how that goes and what my feelings are in it once we get around to starting our hike for next year. And that brings us to that point. What are we planning on doing next year, honey? The dream is still alive, isn't it?
The dream is alive.
The
We
dream is
are,
alive.
you know, complete.
We're wilderness hikers now.
We are, absolutely.
Through hikers, I might
Through
say.
hikers. We are looking at two options. One is to go back to the Sierras, to come in at Rush Creek Trail and join the JMT, and then go off the JMT into the Paradise Valley area.
Going southbound if we take that option. We'll be going southbound on the JMT.
Right. So we'd go into the Paradise Valley area and then come back and join the JMT, and then go all the way down. We would exit out at Cottonwood Lakes, but coming out we would go up to Soldier Lake and over New Army Pass, and kind of hang out around in there. So that's one option. The second option is we've been looking at doing the Washington State portion of the PCT, which of course is longer. It's about 500 miles.
And that goes from Cascade Locks there, which is on the Oregon-Washington border there, Cascade Locks area. There's a bridge there, the Bridge of the Gods, which is made famous by Cheryl Strayed in the movie Wild. And so it starts there and it goes all the way up to Canada.
Right. So that's an option we're looking at as well. So we haven't made up our minds, but we will let you know when we do.
Keep you informed, and we're really excited about this. I hope you all are anxiously awaiting Wild Magnificent, which is our movie for our 2018 adventure, and it's coming out this Thanksgiving Day. So be looking for Wild Magnificent. Tell your friends and families and neighbors about it. Great family film. A lot of fun. So this is Sam and Kath. We're out.